All right, we should stop placing limiting beliefs on children, right? A lot of times, like, kids are taught, whether it's like verbally or by action, that, you know, because of where you come from, you can only go so far. There's a quick story about an elephant. A dad takes his daughter to the zoo one day, and like he's taking her around to all the exhibits, and then they come upon this like elephant exhibit, and the elephant, you know, it's not behind a glass or a fence, and the dad gets upset, like, you should have this thing behind a fence, he's gonna kill everybody here. And, you know, the zookeeper says, well, sir, I understand your concern, but the thing that you don't understand is when this elephant is born, there's a chain placed around his leg, and the other end of the chain is placed around the end of a tree. And no matter how hard this elephant tries, it can never go more than 5 feet away from this tree. So when we bring it to the zoo, we leave the chains, but we bring the tree. So as long as that elephant can see that tree, he's never gonna go more than 5 feet away from it.
Yeah.
In our lives, we tell kids that you can only do this, you can only go here, you can only have this because you're from Americus, you're this, you're that, like you went to public school, like all these limiting beliefs that we put on kids because of, you know, things that they have no control over. So we have to stop doing that to them.
Welcome to the Americus Podcast, where we pursue what it means to become a next level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. My name is John Schroeder, and today I'm joined by Marc Arnett. Marc is a former state representative candidate for Georgia House District 138. He's an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, an author, and an educator. Marc, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you. It's an honor to be here, a privilege. Just excited to be here with you, share my story, you know, share the love that I have for this great city. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you.
Amen. Well, yeah, so you're an educator. And we know, obviously, the education is vital to any community, any family. As an individual, we want to pursue education. So you're currently teaching at Sumter County school system. I would love to hear just how are things going this year as an educator, and what are some things that you're doing to inspire some of your kids?
Right. Well, this year's off to a great start, actually. It's my second year in education, so I came into the year with a better sense of who I am as an educator. Don't have it all figured out yet, but I'm starting to, you know, really find my way into it. You know, so I'm connecting with the students on a whole nother level. You know, we're off to a great start. The students are excited every day. We get to kind of share our stories from the weekend. We get down to business. We learn, right. You know, I teach ELA, so we're reading and we're practicing parts of speech. We're doing all of our stuff, but we're really connecting on that level where, you know, I thought I loved my first group of students, and I thought, okay, it can't get any better than this. And then this year starts, and I'm like, dang, I love these kids even like more. So we're having a great year so far.
That's great. Well, I know it's important for, you know, the kids to be inspired, to be energetic, but when teachers are also excited and energetic and hopeful for these kids, it just continues to build that relationship and that space for kids to grow. So you're working with third graders, correct?
Correct.
So
correct.
What age is that? Like 8, 9?
8, 9,
like
right? Yeah, 8, 9. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And we know that reading is very important, right? We know that the educational system, it's so important to do that. What do you see before we kind of dive into your life? What are these kids? I mean, where do they feel like where do you feel like they are as far as just education?
I mean, just in general, you know, third grade is a pivotal year. I mean, that's the year where reading goes from you go from learning how to read to reading to learn. So you're really having to comprehend what you're reading. You're having to really be able to tell people what you're reading. It's a pivotal year. For our state. That's just the year that they start doing, where Georgia milestones is like a standardized test. So that's like the year that one of the years where it counts the most. So third grade is a really pivotal year. So it's important to just kind of really, you know, have a focus on, you know, where you have to get your kids to. And then, you know, just make sure that they're prepared to take in what you're putting down. Yeah. Right. So just in general, I feel like God chose me and put me in this particular grade for that reason, because he knows how pivotal of a year it is. And the age is very pivotal. They're learning all type of things and, figuring themselves out. So it's good to have, strong leaders and strong men in their lives that can kind of, help guide them and help mold them. So it's just really a true honor to be, in third grade in this county specifically.
Yeah, that is huge. And I know that, just from the educational standpoint, I don't know, maybe you feel some pressure as a teacher, be like, okay, we know how pivotal it is. We want to see this succeed. We want our education to continue to move forward and progress. Yeah. Do you feel that pressure at all? Or
yeah, definitely. Tons of it. I mean, it's for me, because I know how important it is. Like, reading is the fundamental block of every aspect of your life. I mean, if you cannot read, you cannot do anything. I mean, it's you can't do math, you can't, grow up and, become anything without being able to read. And so, just think about it. Like, this is like you're teaching these kids the most important thing that they'll ever know in life, right? Yeah. In order for them to add anything to it, they have to be able to read, right? Yeah. So if they can't do that, then you're setting them up for failure. So this is a life-changing thing every single day. So I wake up feel that pressure, but I also feel that excitement. Okay, we get to change lives today.
And and I've heard the statistics, that it's a lot of kids are really struggling with reading, or just, I don't know, is that something that's new? Is it a new thing statistically, or are there certain markers that have made it harder for kids to read? What were your thoughts on that?
Scientifically, I can't say if it's like, historical data that backs it up that it's harder now than it was back then. But I can say, just, if you've ever tried to learn a new language, right? Mm-hmm. So just think about it, how hard it is to go and learn a new language. So going from, being a kid, being a baby to learning language, to learning how to read harder words, it's very difficult. I mean, so I don't think that, personally, I don't think that it's harder now than it was, 50 years ago to read. I think reading is hard in general across all generations, right? So it's just as hard as for me to learn how to read as it was for, my grandfather, which, maybe it might have been like, more legal and, other stuff involved back then. But, now just the actual pure concept of reading is just a difficult concept, altogether. So, but I don't think that the age makes a difference. I think it's as hard now as it's ever been. Yeah. But it's as important now also as it's ever been too. So,
well, let's talk about that a little bit too, because I want to kind of dive into like you growing up. We got to share a little bit on the phone. It seems to me that your family dynamics, they really encourage you to take education seriously, to push yourself forward. People pouring into your life, even as you grow up. Hey, let's do this thing. Not just being okay with the status quo. So tell me a little bit about, just growing up in Americus. Where were you? Where did you live? What was your family dynamics? What were you doing?
Great question. So I grew up on what we would consider, I guess is considered the north side of Americas. It's like right back here behind us. Mother, father, married 30-something years now.
Wow.
I think 30-something. Hopefully if they watch it, then they know that, charges to my head and not my heart. Mm-hmm. But 30-something years, I have two older brothers, a younger sister. We grew up in a tight-knit family. I live next door. I actually lived in between both sets of grandparents.
Wow,
so my dad's parents lived on one side and my mom's parents lived on the other side. Now, I didn't get to meet my paternal grandmother, but, their houses were there. So I kind of just grew up with family being a very important part of my upbringing. As far as education goes, you were going to go to school, you're going to get good grades. That was just you're
going to stay out of trouble.
You're going to stay out of trouble. You were going to stay out of trouble the best you could, right? You're going to do kid stuff, but for the most part, they encouraged me to, go to school and, do the best that I could. My dad's retired. He's a retired farmer, but he was also in the military. So, he had that background. My on my father's side, I have two aunts that were in education. They were teachers, they're counselor. So they were, very into school. My aunts on my mother's side were very educated. So they were all just kind of pushing us to like all of our cousins, grandkids to, go to school and get the best possible grades we can, to get the best possible jobs we could get and live the best possible lives that we can live. So, it was always that, and,
Was that a part of your personality? Were you feeding into that? Like, or you're like, hold on, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah, I think it took a while.
Okay.
I honestly think that it was probably maybe the junior year of high school before it like really clicked for me.
Yeah.
That at that particular point in time, something happened in our community that was like monumental for, students, from it was monumental for the whole city. So we used to have, two high schools. I'm sure you've probably heard about
this,
that.
Yeah.
But my junior year of high school was that first year that the schools were together.
Okay.
So we went to that particular time. Prior to that, I was at Sumter County High School, and we merged with Americus High School.
Okay.
But when we merged those schools, I met a teacher at that new school that kind of challenged me to think, challenged me to think bigger than where I was, think about things like that I wasn't thinking about prior to that. And, that's kind of when everything really started to click for me about, going to college, about, I'm an entrepreneur like through and through, like just from birth. And I had to come back.
Always thinking about something.
Come back and, really realize that. But it's just from birth. So when I met her, that thing kind of came alive in me where I was all about business and trying to come up with my next, business idea and all of this stuff like that. So, but that's when everything that, my parents had been teaching me or trying to push into me,
just the puzzle pieces kind of
started coming to fit in. Okay. Yeah. Now I still did some bonehead stuff after that, but that's when looking back, I can say that's when it really started to click. For me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what were some values? We talk about values a lot here, and we talk about neighboring, this idea of, being there for one another, what's needed, sacrifice, vulnerability, these things actually make you a better neighbor, right? A servant heart, kind of things like that. What were some things that you saw in your family dynamics that as you, even at, as a junior, just like, not just the educational piece, but like, what were some things that you really cling to, that you think about when you think about your parents or people that poured into you?
Yeah, just that community. Like I said, I grew up in between like my two sets of grandparents. And then on the other side of that, I had a cousin. I had maybe two, three or four houses just full of cousins, that were all on that same street. So like, during the summers, we kind of had this thing called backyard university, right?
Yeah, I was about to say.
So like in one yard, we played track and field events. One yard, we played basketball. One yard, we played football. And like every day, everybody would meet in the same place. And then we kind of just go from house to house. Yeah. So we were always like just together, taking care of each other. We'd fuss and fight, but then we'd play. And like, it's just this whole community of like, love that, looking back on it, it's like, why I value it now as an adult. And when I, decided to raise my kids here, it's because like I wanted them to have, that thing that I had when I was growing up. So, that togetherness, that community, that family, hard work. I mean, my dad is, my dad is one of the hardest working people that I know. I mean, growing up, it's like, he was gone before sun up, and then he came back when sun was down. And, that's just kind of what you see every day. So it kind of gets ingrained into you.
Yeah.
My mother is a tremendous, worker, but she has this thing with people that like you can put her in a room and she just, instantly going to like, it's, lights are on, cameras on, like, and she's going to make you laugh. She's going to make you feel loved. So I always tell my my brothers and my sisters, I was like, I'm the best version of them. Like I'm the perfect combination of like dad's hard work and mom's charisma, like all of that, like those things, some of y'all both, like my sister, she has a little bit more of my mom, not as much as my dad. My brothers are more dad. So, but like, I'm like the perfect blend.
Yeah.
Like,
There you go.
So
there you go.
Yeah. But so those things, like all of those, that family, that hard work, that kindness, my mother has a kind soul. And like, you can tell that she cares. And I think like that goes, into the classroom for me. Like, like those kids, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And so my first thing for them is like, hey, how are you today? Like, so I'm going to greet you at the door. If you look off and be like, hey, come back. What's going on? I teach them little handshakes and stuff, like, so just to kind of, let them know that I'm there for them, but that comes from my mother. That comes from my grandmother, know? So all those things are important and all kind of work to kind of shape who I am today. Yeah,
that's huge. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah, I read a book that had to do kind of with the environment, like what environment you need to have in a community to change or to feel like you can have a safe place to change. And 3 of them I'll point out. One was just joy. Like you come into a room and you look at someone in the face and their face says, I'm glad you're here.
Right.
That's a huge element of like, okay, they're glad that I'm here. Number 2 is the sense of loving attachment. So the statement is, I'm not going anywhere. So I'm glad you're here and I'm not going anywhere. That's huge. And then the third element to that is group identity. What brings us together? What are we all here for that we can all agree upon? So if it's school, it's like, hey, look, we're all here. We're all here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm glad you're here. And we're in this together to help us to be better educated. And then the fourth one is there's only 4, but the other one is about healthy correction. So it's basically saying, hey, I'm not just going to make you feel horrible and shame you.
Right.
But what we're learning is, hey, that's not what we said our group identity was. You're walking away from our group identity. Right. So let's just bring you back in, but we're going to do it because we have joy. I'm not going anywhere. Right. And so I just think things like that, when I'm hearing you, I'm like, man, like you had this family dynamic. You had these people around you that had those elements. And it was just like, all right, let's go. Whatever I got to deal with, let's go. So you want to add to that at all? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on. Like that's kind of it. Like we face adversity as a family. We face like did we love each other or did we like each other all the time?
That's right.
Heck no. Like, my brothers were like,
that's
like,
right.
It was if anybody has ever had older brothers, how I'm the youngest of my brothers. So it was like a tough upbringing. You're not tough enough. Come here.
Yeah.
Like it's just like all the worst stuff that you could think that could happen.
That's right.
But you kind of, where that's coming from. Mm-hmm. That it's love. It's, it's like, that's hey, one day I'm not going to be here. You got to be able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And when they were gone and they were adults and I was there by myself,
mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. I was like, dang, I'm glad I learned how to, do this.
Right. That's right. When somebody grabs me, I kind of know what to do.
Kind of know what to do now, right?
Right.
So, so all of those things are true. Like, it's like, no, we don't like each other all the time. And yet, and we might be going through tough spots.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we love each other. And like that kind of, supersedes everything else. Like that makes it okay. It makes, there have been times in my life where like I've, felt alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, got a call from my grandmother or got a call from my aunt or a text from my aunt. I was like, how did you know that I was feeling like this way? And I would be like across the state or I'd be somewhere else and like, it just would like miraculously happen. But that comes from that upbringing of, hey, we're here for each other, at the end of the day. So
that's huge. Yeah. All right. So you're going into your junior year. Like, let me know a little bit more about you. What songs were you listening to? What was your life? What movies were you watching? Like, tell me where your headspace was.
Junior year of high school. That was 2005. Mm-hmm. So things out. I mean, music. T.I. was out, Young Dro. Like I'm very Jay-Z. I was a big Jay-Z fan, right?
Okay.
So like I still am a little.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like weird for my friends because like everybody's like we're in the South and you're supposed to like you know, all the Southern rappers, and it's like, why are you dressing like a Northern, like you wearing Timberlands and stuff? I'm like, are you wearing like, I think that time he was like wearing like button downs, like button down shirts or whatever. Oh, so I'm like, all my friends have on like 4X white tees and I have on a button down. Like at, you know, what was that, 14 or 15. So like I was always like different in that way. You know, music, you know, Diplomats, like just, you know, that stuff. I had a couple country music. I'm not going to share my favorite country music song right now. Right. So, you know, that'll be for another
That'll be after the podcast.
Yeah. I might drop it in the comments or something. But so just a variety of hip hop, R&B, you know, pop, little country, you know, but movies that were out. I wasn't a big movie guy. Like I was a TV show guy, like 90s sitcoms, like were my thing. You know, like shows like Boy Meets World, like, you know, Disney, you know, they used to have this thing called TGIF. It's like Thank God It's Friday, you know, or whatever, where they had like, what was it? Step by Step. And that might have been before my junior year, but like, you know, the reruns were on and stuff like that. So I'm just like feel good stuff. Like, you know, don't want to like think too much. I was playing basketball. You know, I think I may have been about to start driving at that point. At like for a certain point in like my high school career, I was like going to the NBA. Like,
that's what
and I was going to like,
what was your headspace? Like, where did you feel like you were going?
9th, 10th grade. Like I was going to be, I wasn't even going to the NBA. I was going to be Kobe Bryant. Like I wasn't even going to like, you know, be anything else. Like I had a whole wall full of like posters and a plan on how I was going to become Kobe Bryant. I had saw, this is so funny. So, and I don't think I've ever told this story in public before. So I had watched Fox Sports used to play like these documentaries about basketball players or football players, like, you know, and what they were doing to become great. And I remember one episode, this guy was like, I want to be so great one day. Like I took the number one player. Well, did he take the number one player in his state at that time, and he wrote his name on a sheet of paper and put it above his mirror. So like, I was like, okay, I'm going to do that, right? I'm going to do that. I'm going to take, you know, so I think at that particular point in time, it was Javaris Crittenton. I never forget it. I took it. He was like playing in Atlanta, Southwest Atlanta Christian High School or something like that. I took his name. I put it on my wall. He also said he took his favorite player and he basically cut his head out of one of his pictures and put it on his favorite player's body, right, on his wall. I did the same thing with Kobe. So like my mom came in one day, she's like, what? I'm like, no, Mom, you don't understand. It's part of the plan. I'm going to the NBA. Right. So, you know, at 9th, 10th grade year, I'm going to the NBA for sure. 10th grade, I ended up breaking my ankle. And, you know, never really got that love for basketball back. So by the time 11th grade is coming, like, okay, what's next for me?
That's right.
And that's kind of when I fell in love with entrepreneurship and business. For real. And
absolutely. Okay. So junior high school, you graduate. Where are you going? What you doing?
Well, first, I want to say that there was a program in high school called Upward Bound. And I think it's a national program. I'm sure it's a national program through the federal government, but we had it here at Georgia Southwestern State University. So it basically let kids that were going to be like first generation college students, you know, get the college experience. So every other weekend we'd go out to GSW, we'd take classes. Awesome. And it took students from the surrounding areas. So it was like Sumter County, Marion County, Sly County, Crisp County, and I want to say it may have been one other county, but all of those kids from all of those schools came to GSW, and then every Saturday we take a math class, science class, literature class, and history class. So for 4 years, I had been in this program, so we were going every other Saturday to GSW to, you know, we were writing papers, learning how to, that's where I learned how to speak in public, you know, because you had to get up the first day and introduce yourself. And I'm like, it's a room full of kids, and it's, you know, freshmen to seniors in the room. So I get there, and it's a big room, and it's like seniors up front, and you're like this freshman in the back and you got to stand up. My name is, so, you're terrified, right?
Yeah.
So, but as you keep going and you keep doing it, like you get more comfortable. So for 4 years I did that. And then every summer you move out on campus. You would actually go live on campus for 6 weeks, was it?
Wow.
Can't remember.
Okay.
But you'd go to those classes every day, whatever. And then, that program would allow, when you got to like your junior year, well, one, you take the SAT with them and then you start applying for colleges with them. So that program was by far had the biggest impact on my life. Like, and unfortunately we don't have that program anymore. And I am on the, my soapbox. We need that back. We need that back. Like that's something that's missing from our community. That program that pushes kids into college. Because without it, I don't go to college. Without it, there's no way that I even know. Maybe I do, but there's a high percentage of chance that I don't go to college without Outward Bound. But I did. I finished that program, and I ended up transitioning and going to Columbus State University.
Okay,
where my goal was to go and major in business and become entrepreneur and a millionaire by the time I graduated college.
That's
and,
right.
The rest is history.
What is is there anything that when in your first initial moves, entrepreneurship, that you tried to create that was an idea that either was already in existence when you're working on, like, oh, that's already there, or anything that you have been working on? As
in college, so my first business in college was called Hermes Personal Assistant, right? It was basically a personal courier, a concierge service, but like we really got big and like tried to narrow it down to a courier service. But basically it was like, hey, you need us to pick up dinner, you need us to drop your laundry off, you need us to take movies back to Blockbuster. Blockbuster was still alive, Video Warehouse was still alive. Pick the kids up for school. Like we were Uber, Grubhub, like I mean, we were those platforms before they actually came out. So we just didn't figure out how to make that switch and make it work. So I remember sitting in a barbershop, like after we applied, we were me and my best friend at the time. He's still my best friend today. I shouldn't say at the time. Hey, Antoine, how are you? But we were so naive, and I think things were so much harder back then to like start a business. Like we didn't know, because it was just like, how do you start a business? And we like Googled it and figured out, okay, well, we need to go hire a lawyer. And this is like two college students. Like I was a freshman, he was a sophomore at the time. And like, we're like, okay, we're going to go hire a lawyer and start a business. So we go to this law firm and this guy's like, what do you want? And they're like, we want you to be our lawyer. He's like, well, I charge about, $600 an hour. We're like, okay, we got 600,
that's right.
Like, we had put all of our money together because, you could get a refund check from school, Everybody knows about refund checks, right? But, so that's what we decided that we were going to do. We were going to put our money together and start that business. So we hired a lawyer, and we, got our LLC, we got our bank accounts, we got everything set up. And I remember sitting in the barbershop like that day, and there's a guy in there, and he's like, yeah, man, there's this new thing called Twitter, and I all the businesses need to get on there. I'm telling you, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And I remember going back to Antoine's house later that day, and I was like, listen, man, we got to get on Twitter. I don't know what it is, but we got to figure out what it is and get on Twitter and put our business up there, right? So we did. We put the page up there, but we didn't like figure out how to make it work. So thankfully, somebody else that was smarter than us and had more money than us figured it out later for all of our benefit. Like Uber's great. Right.
It's great though that you knew that you had an original idea. Though it was other people saw it too. It's just like, hey, that's a value. Like what you wanted to bring is something of great value, which is just like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. I had a friend of mine. I say. He's still a friend of mine. But we would be in a meeting. We'd be like in a staff meeting, and we would all be talking about something. And then like 20 minutes later, he would chime in. Right. And he would say the exact same thing that we all just said. And I was like, hey, man, you're not paying attention to what's going on? Right. And then one of the other staff members said, hey, just know, John, he thought about it all by himself while we were talking about it for 20 minutes. Like, he was not paying attention, but yet he came up with the same concept. I was like, yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know what? You're right. So I was like, thank you so much for being here. So, all right. So, okay, right. You're doing that. You're going through that. What's kind of the next big step for you? What's going on after Columbus State? Where do you see yourself? Where are you going? When did you graduate from Columbus State?
Well, actually, so life happened, right? Okay. So, which this is a, real thing. Like sometimes you can just live and everything gets super easy and you go and you graduate on time and, everybody loves you. Well, sometimes things don't go as planned, right? Mm-hmm. So I ended up taking longer to graduate and then life happening. I ended up getting married, ended up having children, and just kind of, letting life take its course. Mm-hmm. And I ultimately didn't end up graduating from CSU. I ended up graduating from GSW, Georgia Southwestern here, later on. Mm-hmm. But things that happened that were influential for me or very critical for me in Columbus, I joined a fraternity called, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And that's where I met my greatest set of friends, in my greatest set of that. I connected with my best network, exposure is important, right? Yeah. So when you grow up, I grew up here in Americus. I love it. I wouldn't take anything from it. Yeah. I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me doing the things that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So when I went to Columbus and I joined that fraternity, I started going to different meetings and conferences and things. And I started seeing, hey, these people like what I like. They, they do what I do and they're successful. So I was immediately motivated to want more. And now I can see it. I wanted to be a millionaire and I didn't know any millionaires to my knowledge. I didn't growing up. Yeah. If I might, there's all these legends about, old men that had so much money when we were kids, they had money buried in the backyard, right? Yeah. So they had the money buried in the backyard, I didn't know they had the money buried in the backyard. Yeah, that's right. But when I got to college and, got connected with that fraternity, I met real millionaires, right? And I got to spend time with them, get to be mentored by them. And, that kind of, turned my passion up more and just made me that much, more ambitious. It's just I know that it's possible now. Yeah. Sometimes and that's why, again, I chose to stay here because I wanted kids to be able to see me, and say, okay, you don't have to be going to church on Sunday to wear a suit. You can wear a suit. I see Mr. Arnett every day. He has a suit on. I wanted kids to see that. Right. Mm-hmm. So, but that's what I got to experience in Columbus with, joining the fraternity. It was the beginning of something, but it changed the way I saw it changed the way I saw myself and it changed the way I saw the world after that and just opened up so many doors for me. So by the time I ended up moving back to Americus, I want to say 2014, 2015-ish. Okay. By the time I moved back here, I knew that I knew what type of man I wanted to be. Yeah. Right? Yep. I knew what type of father I wanted to be. By then, I knew what impact I wanted to have on Americans and the people in the community that lived here. Yeah. So, yeah. But that happened because I got in the right rooms and, those rooms changed my life. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So when you landed back into Americus, what did you start kind of stepping into? Yeah. Life had happened. Right. I lost my grandfather shortly before we moved back to Americus, on my mother's side. And that's, I told you I lived between both sets of grandparents. Yeah. I lost my father's grandfather, my father's father. Yeah, there you go. Early. Well, I probably was 3-4 years old. But my mother's father lived next door to me basically my whole life. So I had a stronger relationship. That was the closest person that I had ever lost to me, because I saw him every day. I ate lunch with him or ate dinner with him.
Yeah.
You know, every summer, you know, spend time with, that's the man that I, you know, aside from my father, the second most influential man in my life. So I lost him and kind of, you know, dealt with some stuff that kind of, you know, brought me back to kind of trying to recalibrate my life. So when I came back here, I was looking for a new opportunity. You know, I came back, you know, I hadn't completed college yet, so I wasn't as marketable. I came back here humble, because I had, you know, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, you know, went through some stuff. But when I came back here, I was humbled and, you know, willing to kind of start at the ground level anywhere. And I remember going to a staffing agency, and I was like, you know, sometimes you can be arrogant, you're young, and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to go to a staffing agency or whatever. You know, I can find a job on my own. And I went to a staffing agency because I remember that my oldest son's birthday was coming up. Like, it was like a few weeks away. And I was like, I don't got a lot of money right now. And I need a job to at least be able to get my son something for his birthday, right? And so at that point, like, you know, all the pride was out the window. You know, it's like, hey, you know, you don't got nothing to lose. You got probably $100 to your name. Yeah. You know, what do you have to lose? So I go to the staffing agency, put in the application, and the guy calls me back, and you know, all of my experience at that point had been sales, you know, office related. Like I was, you know, sold insurance, you know, that's pretty much all I had done. No manual labor. I wasn't very, I'm not gonna say I'm not handy. I can be handy, right? I worked at a hardware store, but I sold stuff at a hardware store in college, right? So my gift is sales, right? So so he called me back. He's like, hey, I don't really have anything that like fits your skill set, you know? And I was like, well, listen, what do you have? And he's like, I really will take anything. He's like, well, I have a company, a job at this company over in Ellaville. You know, I won't mention the name, but it's in the parts room, and it pays about $9 or something an hour. And you know, I'm like, in my mind, like $9. What am I gonna do with that? Yeah. But I say, okay, I'll take it, and I almost have to say the name of the company because it kind of goes with the story. Right. But it was like it was a pneumatic company. I'll say that. I had never heard the word pneumatic. So I'm Googling. I'm like, what is pneumatic, whatever. And, you know, so I eventually figured out, I show up to the job interview and I have on kind of like I am today. I have on a suit, right? I have on a suit, like full suit, shoes. And I show up, walk in the office and go through the interview, and everybody, they seem impressed. We're going to walk you through the shop and show you what we do. Yeah. And we walk out into the shop. And as you can imagine, like it's Ellaville and it's a trailer shop. And yeah, you know, so it's the elements. It's hot. It's, you know, guys, they're covered in grease. They have on, you know, work uniforms, you know, everything. And they're looking at me like, who's this, you know, guy with the suit on? And like, what's he doing here? Whatever. So like, it's just the most bizarre scene that you can ever see. So, but they take me through it. And like, at this point, I'm motivated by, hey, my son's birthday is coming up and I don't have any money. So I'm going to show up like whatever it takes. And so they offered me the job, and I started in that parts room at $9 an hour, Monday through Friday, like in the heat of the summer. Yeah. Wow. By the time I left there, I was the service manager. So I had learned everything that I could learn about pneumatic tanks. Like I would spend, the guy who ran the shop had been there since its inception, like in 1980. So I'm picking his brain every day. I'm like, why do we do this? What's this for? Like, you know, I could probably draw it out. I probably can't build it myself, but I can tell you everything about pneumatic trailers, agriculture trailers, hopper bottoms, belt trailers, like all the stuff that makes South Georgia run, right? Yeah. But it was just that stuff that my parents taught me,
Yeah.
My dad, that hard work, that kindness. Like when I went out there to those guys, I wasn't, looking down on them like, hey, I'm in the parts room. Remember, but, I'm humbled by life's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Life has taught me that you can learn anything from. So every person that's doing a different job, like I'm asking, hey, why do you do that?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure it out. So that me having that hunger and that desire ended up for me getting multiple promotions, and I left way above $9 an hour by the time it was time for me to leave there. But that wouldn't have happened if I was too proud or just not willing to accept hey, you don't have it all figured out, so
that's huge. That's huge. And I think,
sorry, that was a long story. That kind of brought us around the world.
It reminds me of, as my children are growing up, as your children are growing up, it's helping people, helping my son say, listen, you're 12 years old. But man, you've got to realize that you've got to take steps, and you can't walk into everything with this attitude. You've got to come in with a servant's heart. You got to come in and say, hey, listen, I'm not going to wait for you to give me respect. I'm just going to immediately give you respect and start working towards it. And people respond to that. Right. I mean, they immediately start, even if it's something small. We're at the grocery store and I'm meeting this person and she's a little frustrated maybe with her rest of her day. And so I just say, hey, really great. I mean, she's the worker, but I'm saying, hey, it's really nice to meet you. I hope things are going well for you. And then right after that, her attitude's just a little bit better.
Right.
For the next person. And that's kind of what you're saying is, hey, let's step in.
Right.
I mean, if we want to make Americus better, right, then that's what we need to do is have that humility, step into these things. Yeah. And then you'll see that progress. You created progress there. Right. That's amazing. So, I mean, those are the qualities that I think, again, not just for an individual, but even for a city, if we can continue to double down on those things, which we can be talking about in just a minute. But let's go ahead and jump a little bit into 2020. 2020 was a big year for you. You ran, right? For the state representative candidate, Georgia House District 138. Tell me a little bit about why you did that. What was your motivation for that? And then tell me a little bit about that process for you.
Sure. 2020 was a big year for all of us. Yeah. Crazy year for all of us. But I decided to run for state representative in 2020. Well, I decided before that, but actually ran in 2020. Prior to that, though, in 2018, I had qualified to run for school board. There was an at-large school board seat that had came up for election. And I qualified for it the first time, and I dropped this amazing promo video. With the drone that had 360 views of the whole school complex. I mean, it was a remarkable thing if I say so myself, right? That's right. But, I had great friends like Jimmy Whaley that I think he actually ran the drone for me, Daryl Sabs, who were great friends of mine. And they both kind of helped me create this masterpiece of a campaign video that we were all excited about. A lot of people, prayed for me. I remember dropping the video and typing up this post. And I mean, I think it had probably 800 comments yeah, way to go. And it was just an amazing moment for our community. In my opinion. Now, if somebody else might have saw it different, that video was trash. I don't know what he was thinking about. Who was he? They might have their own feelings about it. But what I felt in that moment was wow. I felt that love in this community. I felt the support. I'll never say that Americus doesn't support its own, right? I'll never say that, because in the times where I've put myself out there, they've shown up in great ways for me, big and small, right? But during that time, there was some litigation between, different parties. And I don't know all the details, but I know that, there was a court ruling that made them stop the election the first time. And it's hey, boom, this case is going on. We can't have the election. We'll let you know when there's a new election. Cool. Sent my money back. All right. Well, came again. I qualified again. Didn't go out with the fanfare that I had the first time. No drone video, but hey, we're at it again. A lot of love, a lot of comments. A week later, they stopped the election again. And I'm like, oh, God, what's going on?
Yeah.
But, sometimes there are things that are working that are bigger than you, and you just have to kind of allow for those things to happen. And God has a reason for everything that he does. Yeah. So in that time, though, like from them canceling the election the second time, I just stayed busy. I stayed volunteering at my kids' school. I wasn't a teacher then. I was still, at that particular point in time, just transitioning to that full-time motivational speaker, traveling to school speaking, youth groups and stuff of that nature. But I was, just stayed busy and stayed engaged in the community. I went to a congressional Black Caucus boot camp that's sponsored, by all the, Congress people from all over, the United States, and they kind of send people from their district to DC to learn about the process, learn about campaigns, kind of creates depth in the political arena for your area. So you get people that can manage campaigns and, do everything. Every part of a campaign you learn how to do, right? So I came back a fully trained campaign operative, right? Yeah. Like I can run a campaign with my eyes closed, right? Yeah. Right. So I came back, and there was another one of those moments where like the lid gets taken off, and you're like, oh, I see another level of life. I see another opportunity. Like I saw people in politics that I had never seen. Like, in politics growing up for me, I saw, old white men, right? I didn't see, we had Barack Obama, but like that's, the exception to the rule and not the rule. Like I just didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in politics. You just saw, what they put on TV, right? Yeah. So that's just kind of where it was. So going to DC and being around all of these people that had, worked on campaigns and they looked like you, and they're, it's just like, whoa, like where'd you come from? And this person worked for Hillary Clinton, and this person worked for, just Democrats and Republicans. Like, it's just like no party, favors, but just like, just the point of being in politics and being in DC was just such a, breathtaking moment. Because I had never been to DC. I think I had only been on a plane once before that. Anyway. Okay. So it's just kind of like, it's a lot going on. But there, I learned that the impact that I wanted to make in Americas started at the state level. Okay. So before I looked at the local board of education, like, okay, boom, that's where you need to be, to get the change that you want. And then going there and learning more about how everything works. I'm like, okay, well, your state representative kind of, fights for funding for your school district, right? Yeah. They fight for, healthcare. They fight for jobs, and like making things equitable. So I was like, and then I had looked back and looked at all the people that ran, and I was like, well, I'm not a lawyer, right? Because a lot of them were lawyers or retired. I'm like, but maybe. So maybe. Yeah. So, and I floated the idea by a couple people that I trust and love, and they weren't appalled by it. So I was like, okay, well, let's try it. And that's my first time ever running. And, I ran for state representative, which was, one of the most, life-changing experiences, it just really, to add on top of, and I decided on this in like 2019. So this is like way pre-pandemic. So it's like, well, then you get to 2020 and the pandemic's happening. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess we were doing this in a pandemic too. So it's kind of just like added the level of difficulty, just kind of upped it. So I was just like, all right, though, I'm here for it. So,
yeah. So what are some things that you learned from that campaign, from that season that you've brought into even your teaching and things like that?
I mean, some people may disagree with me when I say this, but I learned patience. You have to have patience. You have to have patience, especially during COVID. It was a lot of like wait and see. You know, it was a lot of like, you know, the things that I was good at was getting in front of people, getting in rooms, shaking people's hands.
Yeah.
You know, couldn't do any of that.
Yeah.
Right. So on one hand, it took away one of my strengths.
Yeah.
Right. Of being able to go to like, I had planned to go to all the city council meetings in every city in the district, the county commission. I had this whole plan in my mind of like how I'm going to get to know these people and, you know, make them love me. But then I found out I couldn't do it in person. Yeah. So it's like, that's going to be so hard. But the blessing in that was, hey, my opponent had to do the same thing. So it wasn't like, you know, I have a handicap. Like, now he's got to, you know, do it the same way that I'm doing it. And it kind of almost levels the playing field because it's like, you know, yeah, there were some rooms that I couldn't get in that he could get into physically. Yeah. But virtually, playing field's kind of level. And I felt like I had an advantage because I was already, you know, more into social media. I was more into virtual stuff already. So I kind of felt like, hey, well, this kind of almost levels the playing field. I mean, he also had bukus of money. So it's just kind of like, you know, when it came time to it, I had to raise a lot. But, you know, at the base level, it's like, okay, well, I have to go virtual. He has to go virtual. So, you know, but so I learned that. I learned patience. I learned, you know, how to build rapport quickly, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Especially over the phone. Like you get like a few seconds to, you know, cold calling somebody. And I learned that through insurance, but you know, you call somebody, you got a few seconds before they hang up on you. That's right. You know, I spent a lot of time on the phone, a lot of time in front of cameras, interviewing and doing things like that. So it's, you know, it's stuff that, you know, they don't teach you in school, right? You kind of like this on the job training. But
so what's one thing that if someone was trying to run right now, whether it's a campaign or just those types of things, what's one of the things that you learned that you're like, hey, you need this, like you need to be aware of this. This would be helpful for you.
Oh, that's a great question. Shoot, I would say, stay true to yourself. Like I can't give you any better advice. Like there are some times where I had to say, no, I'm not saying that, or that's not me, or like, you know, this is what I care about. Like, and like, these are the things like at the end of the day, when the results came in, I was able, it hurt. I mean, it hurt like, you know, I mean, I gave my all to that campaign. Like I poured I eat, you know, like everything, every ounce of me I poured into that campaign. So when I lost, it hurt, like devastated me, like still, like I'm like cringe a little bit. But like, I didn't lose myself in it though. Like everything that I said on that camp, I meant like when it was talking about, you know, making education a priority in our district, making healthcare available to everyone, fighting for jobs for our community. I mean, like those things I stand on. Like I talk about those things now, and I'm not running for anything. Like I was talking about this stuff before I ran. Like, hey, what do we have to do to like make sure our kids are getting a quality education? What do we have to do to make sure like our seniors are taken care of? Like we have health care. What do we have to do to make sure that like people want to live here? They have the money to like do things that they enjoy, take care of their families. Like those are things that I'm already passionate about. So like, honestly, I didn't have to. Most people say, oh, politicians lie. Like, no, that was me. That's everything that you saw during that time. Those are the things that matter to me. Those are things that still matter to me. You know, so if I had to give any advice to anyone thinking about running for office, stay true to yourself. Like, don't go out here promising stuff that you can't do. And don't let anybody don't go out here and be a mouthpiece for somebody that's trying to push an agenda that you don't believe in. Like, you know, whatever you believe in, stay true to that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Wow. So, well, within that, so you ran in 2020, and like you said, a lot of big things. COVID was a big thing.
Right.
You're still here in Americus. You stay here.
Yeah.
And now you're a teacher. I mean, tell us a little bit about what made you get plugged in and say, okay, like I'm still I'm still going to be an advocate for these things, but I'm also going to be on the front lines, like you said, helping out with kids, every day.
Right. Well, I'm a part of me. I needed to take a break from politics. Initially I tried to take 10 days like Stacey Abrams did, right? So I remember like laying in my bed, like after the election, it was probably day 2 or something. And I saw like an article where, when she lost the governor's race, she like took, 10 days and then she came back and she, became who she became. And I was like, all my friends would call me like, hey, what are you going to do next? I'm like, just give me 10 days. Just give me 10 days. Right. So 10 days came and went. And like, I was like, I guess I got to get up now. And I had a friend that wanted to do a business venture, childhood friend. And at one point in time, I looked around, I was like, well, where are all my friends? Like people that I grew up with, people that know me, like, where are they? And like, what are they doing? And like, so I started connecting with them and like found out, we have a lot of stuff in common, but I spent some time with a couple of my friends one day and they were like, well, Will, this is kind of, a cool idea that we have. And, we think you'd be cool for it. You do a good job at it. And I was like, well, I love entrepreneurship. So, new idea. Come on with it. So we had an opportunity to bring something new to Americus and we did that. It was a great experience. But ultimately it was far away from my real purpose in life. And it took, going through that experience and, seeing, ups and downs. I still love entrepreneurship, but that was just the wrong space for me. And God kind of led me back to, all right, this is who you are. Right. Yeah. So as much as I tell you, hey, don't lose yourself in campaign, also like don't lose yourself in life. Right. Because like I think the darkness of losing that campaign, like really kind of like made me question like a lot of things. And it, on top of, being in a pandemic and like you're not connected to people. I think what goes under the radar is like how it affected all of our mental not even capabilities, but like our mental health. It really takes a toll on you. Like that pandemic, like you might have been, with your wife or your kids, or you might have been with your mom and your dad. But I don't think that there's ever been a time where I felt as alone during those months in COVID as I felt ever in my life. Like I was just like, so those moments and those days after the election, like, you're questioning like, dang, how did you lose? Like, what's the good in society? Don't people want to like, and you're like deep in it. So I think me taking that step away, I stepped away from politics, but in that moment, I also stepped away from who I was. Yeah. And when it came, I always think about the story in the Bible, and you're gonna have to like highlight it for me. But it's like, and he came to himself. Was that the prodigal son?
Yeah, that's the prodigal son.
That was the prodigal son, right? Yeah, so like in that moment, like I remember like saying, and I came to myself, like, oh, where you been? Like you've been out your mind like this whole time. So it's like, it was a really great experience. I met a lot of great people. It taught me a lot. I mean, entrepreneurship is something that I've wanted to do my whole life, and I've done it in different areas. This was something that I tried and had a great time doing it. Lost a lot of friends. It wasn't a very popular move, but it was something that I felt like I had to do. For that experience. And we did that. But when I came to myself, I realized that, hey, something's missing like in life. Like you can have all the money, you can have all the fame, the popularity. Like, I mean, that was like the peak of my popularity in certain sections of the community. Like everyone loved, me in that moment. And it's like, then you realize, oh, they don't love you. They love what you can do for them. Right. And then so you're there and you're like, okay, all right, now you're coming to yourself. Hey, these are the people that really care about you. This is where God needs you to be. Like, this is what he needs you to do. And honestly, quite like someone asked me what, like a little while ago, like, you know, if you were going to, you know, go back and run for election again, like, what would you make your with your experience now as an educator, like, what would you be, you know, most favorable of, or like, what would be like your campaign pitch about education? It's like, pay the teachers more, right? So like, that's right? So like, it's not the most lucrative career right now because I'm so early in it. So there's an adjustment in that for me. Like, it's just like, okay, shoot, man, I have champagne and caviar dreams, right? Right. But you really have to like appreciate the impact that you make on lives, right? The purpose in education for me, like, this is something I probably ran from teaching for, you know, 15, 20 years. You know, I probably was supposed to be a teacher in my 20s, but like, I was just like trying to do it my way. And, you know, sometimes I equate this is me submitting my will to God's will. And just saying, all right, God, you got me. You know, hey, can't, I try to go around you, try to do it.
That's right.
But now I realize, you know, hey, I am nothing without you. Where'd you want me to go? And like, I feel those moments. Last year was a struggle because like, I was like a new teacher and I was like, you know, if every teacher can tell you about their first year, and their experiences. My first year was like, you know, survival, like, oh my God, like my head spinning the whole time. But like the second year when I came in, it was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Like, this is it. That's awesome. And so that's kind of like, you know,
that's a beautiful thing.
You can't run from that. You know, that's purpose, you know?
And, you know, and there are certain aspects of our lives that we want to continue to pursue. And but man, when you find, you know, like you said, what you feel God has called you to, I mean, anything outside of that, it seems shiny, you know, it's like, oh, that's nice. You know, I'd like to have that. But man, there's just nothing better than just being exactly where you need to be. Right. You know? And you're helping to educate, you know, children that they're going to now have opportunities in the future. And they're going to be like, you know, I remember that, you know? So it's not just about what you can bring to the table, but it's about what you're investing into these other kids that they can eventually bring to Americus or other places. So it's just really, that's a really encouraging thing. So,
I mean, sometimes I feel like I needed them more than they need me. Like, like even like, in these days, like my birthday just passed. It was August the 30th. And so first day of school, I'm telling the kids like, hey, you know, when my birthday comes, we're going to eat Takis and we're going to like have birthday cake and like, so the whole year they're waiting for my birthday. They're like, oh yeah. And like, you know, but in that time they grow to love me. Right. So now they're genuinely like looking forward to my birthday. Like they're genuinely looking forward. And then like, August 29th comes and it's like, hey, we got to cancel school tomorrow because it's gonna storm or something. And like they announced it after I had put them on the bus. So they're leaving school thinking, oh, we come back. It's gonna be Mr. Arnett's birthday. You know, it's gonna be great. I can't wait to, you know, see him. And I'm like, dang. I'm really sad because I'm not going to see them on my birthday because it's the purest form of love and joy. Like when you walk into school and they're like, hey, Mr. Arnett, like that feels good. Like, it's like, you know, I can't explain it, but like, I know what it feels like to like have like unconditional love. Like they just met me. Right. But they know that I care for them. I'll tell them like, hey, it's me and y'all, like, you know, I'll go to war for y'all. Like every day. Every day I'm gonna fight for y'all. And they believe it, right? Because it's true, you know? And so, you know, that feeling is, you know, what I've spent my whole life looking for, right? It almost feels like that. And I always, last year I was like, I haven't had that moment yet where I feel like, you know, this is what, like, but I've had that moment every day this year. Where I feel like I know why I'm here.
I love it. I love it. And I'm happy for you, man. That's amazing. Because a lot of people, like you said, sometimes it's in your 20s, sometimes it's in your 50s. And you're just like, you know, so it seems like the Lord was gracious and give you know, give it a little bit sooner than
now.
Later.
Let me say this too, like if I'm okay with saying it, like it's not just like because I don't want to like say, okay, I'm going to be in the classroom forever.
Yeah.
But like the impact that a teacher makes on the life of a student is, the best feeling in the world. Like, and then like, so I don't know where life's going to take me.
Yeah, that's
right. But I know that
you're where you need to be.
I'm where I need to be right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Well, let's talk really quickly about even like the future of Americus. When we think about these kids, they're 8, 9 years old, next 10, 15 years. What kind of Americus do we want to leave them as they kind of step into it? And I asked you on the phone, I talk about what are some things that we need to start doing as a community? What are some things that we need to stop doing? And what's one thing that we can never stop doing? So how would you kind of answer those positive, negative, and then kind of the just what do we need to continue to be? What makes us who we are?
Right. So, okay. Yeah, great question again. So what do we need to start doing?
Yeah.
First, start is, that's such a tough one, right? We should stop. Let's start where we should stop.
Do that.
All right. We should stop placing limiting beliefs on children, right? A lot of times, like, kids are taught, whether it's like verbally or by action, that, because of where you come from, you can only go so far. Like, or what your last name is, you can only be this much, right? I remember there's a story of, and I'm gonna try to get it in there real quick, but there's a quick story about an elephant. A dad takes his daughter to the zoo one day, and like he's taking her around to all the exhibits, and then they come upon this like elephant exhibit, and the elephant, it's not behind a glass or a fence, and the dad gets upset, like, man, why this animal's gonna kill everybody? And so he starts wearing out the zookeeper, like, you should have this thing behind a fence, he's gonna kill everybody here. And the zookeeper says, well, sir, I understand your concern, but the thing that you don't understand is when this elephant is born, there's a chain placed around his leg, and the other end of the chain is placed around the end of a tree. And no matter how hard this elephant tries, it can never go more than 5 feet away from this tree. So when we bring it to the zoo, we leave the chains, but we bring the tree. So as long as that elephant can see that tree, he's never going to go more than 5 feet away from it.
Yeah.
In our lives, we tell kids that you can only do this, you can only go here, you can only have this because you're from Americus, you're this, you're that, like you went to public school, like all these limiting beliefs that we put on kids because of, things that they have no control over. So we have to stop doing that to them. And I see it every day, like whether not just in one school, but I see it everywhere where, adults place their limiting beliefs on kids. Man, let them live, right? Tell them that there are no limits, right? Don't make life harder than it has to be for them. Like, so let's remove those barriers and remove those limiting beliefs from them. Right? That's what we can stop doing.
That's good.
What we can never stop doing is loving each other. Right? So I remember I told you earlier, like, my family's tight, like, but we don't like each other all the time, right? And that I'm sure that goes across every family, right? But one thing, we always love each other. So wherever disagreement we have, whatever issues that we have, it all comes back to like, hey, I love you though. I might want to like trip you down these stairs sometimes, but hey, if somebody else tries to trip you, we're going to have an issue. Right. So we can never stop loving each other and showing that love. Like we say, like God, the way that God loves us, right? God doesn't give us conditions. He doesn't like love us because, hey, on this day he feels like loving us, but tomorrow he might not. No, like always, he loves us always. So we have to extend that same love to our neighbors, to our community members. Like, hey, listen, I might not agree with your political beliefs. I might agree with you religiously. I might not agree what food you like. What's the best restaurant in town? We might, get in the street and dog it out about, what Burger King versus McDonald's, right? But at the end of the day, we love each other and we can eat. I can eat my McDonald's. You can eat your Burger King side by side and we can laugh about it because we have that love for each other. That's so good. Now, what can we start doing? We have to start investing, right? Our time, talents, and treasure here, right? our time. Like, what are you volunteering for? If you're not volunteering at the rec department, the arts council, tourism, like you're not, they have First Fridays First Friday, like volunteer for that. You can come read to the kids at school, or come volunteer for something at school. Like there's a million places that you can volunteer your time, churches, food banks. What are you volunteering to do? Coaching these sports leagues. Mr. Dwight Harris has a summer league. You can volunteer and coach down there. We have a lot of sports critics in town, right? So, hey, that's the best way. I got a chance to coach my sons in rec sports, and it's a fulfilling thing. Like, if you don't have a son, volunteer to coach your neighborhood kids. But what are you giving your time to? Your talents. Hey, if you're good at photography, take pictures and post them of Americas and show people how great it is to live here. Show them the good. If you're a singer, write a song about Americas. Like whatever your talent is, give it to here. Give it to home. And your treasure. Put your money where your mouth is. Right. Pay your taxes. If you're a homeowner, right? Do that. But there are tons of causes that you can give to, nonprofits that are like trying to work hard to teach kids how to read. Churches that are trying to build playgrounds or build buildings, to have a summer program. There are tons of places where you can, show that you care. If you can't do it with your time or your talents, you can give it with your treasure, So give your time, talents, and treasure to home.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's really, really good. Yeah, and I think too, with these kids, it's like what you said, there's a lot of things, and I don't know if the last, 10 to 15 years, probably like you said, even with COVID, like there's just a lot of disconnect a lot of times with communication and inspiring these kids to continue to move forward. Like, hey, don't worry, who you are today. Like, let's speak about who you're going to be tomorrow. And like, let's speak into that. Let's encourage you. And we just need to continue to reinforce that. Like you said, even if it's not your kid, if you see some kid and you're just like, hey, point something out, to them. It's like, hey, I saw this. You're really, really good at this,
Right.
And they're just like, oh, wow, maybe that's something I need to do. Like, yeah, man, like I'm noticing this in you, So it's the more and more that we can kind of speak life into each other, I think would be really, really great. Because I think a lot of kids are asking the question, what am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be? Right. And if you can just pull out some qualities, it may not be the exact thing, but it lets them know like, hey, there's potential over here. So I think that's awesome. Well, I will say this, as far as you talked about some of the obstacles that we need to be aware of as well. We're talking about speaking life into our kids. But what do you think about, you talked a little bit about church and stuff. What do you think the role of faith in a community looks like right now?
Faith is everything. I know that sounds cliche, but like, in reality, right? What do we have without God? Right? Nothing. Like, he's so gifted, and he's like designed this world with so many unique things and wonderful things that like I just took a CPR class today, and like just look at the heart, right? And how it operates. Like he carefully orchestrated that thing to like, this thing does this thing does that, to like make it all come together. Like, the work that he did with the human body is just like amazing, right? Yeah. And it's the same thing that he's done with the world, right? So in our community, I might do this, you might do that, but we come together for the greater good. Yeah. That's the way God designed it, right? Everything has a job to do, right? Everything has a purpose. And when you find your purpose and it aligns with God's purpose, it's magical. Not even gonna say magical. It's a blessing. Yeah, right? That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's a blessing. Yeah. Like it's what it's supposed to be, because that's the way God designed it. And, without faith, I am nothing. Everything that I have is because God gave it, right? Yeah. He didn't give it because I was so good. He didn't give it because I fit the criteria. He gave it because he wanted to give it. Yeah, that's right. It's his purpose. Like that's like he didn't set it like up like that. Like, so, we have to believe in a greater good, greater cause. Faith is big in our community.
Yeah.
You meet so many faithful people, in this community. Where I don't care if they go to, this church or that church, like, a good person when you see one, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the thing that has to kind of keep going in order for our community to grow.
We were doing the recreation program for football right now, and Coach Harris, he's like, all right, he was telling the parents, like, all right, we're going to be, practicing several days a week. He said, not on Wednesday, because Wednesday's church day. And then he just kind of paused. He was like, I don't even know if most of you guys go to church anymore, but we're still not going to do it on Wednesday because that's what we should be. And that's what we're talking about. It's just those pillars in our community. It's like, hey, listen, there are still like sacred moments that we need to own.
Right.
And hey, don't forget that that's one of the reasons why we don't do that.
Right.
And so he's just trying to promote those things. And I'm just like, I love it,
Yep.
Because maybe it's like, no, I ain't worried about that or what. But, you have people that are pillars in our community that's like, hey, this is still really, really important.
Right.
We need to fight for that,
Right.
Well, listen, Mark, this has been awesome. I wanted to spend the last few minutes, what we call rapid fire questions, just to get a chance to get to know you a little bit more. Cool. So here they come for you. And again, these are just opportunities for us to hear a little bit more about your life on the day to day. And so let me go ahead and start with this one. I have to ask this question first. Are you a breakfast person? Like, do you eat breakfast in the morning? Some people just do like the intermittent fasting and stuff. They just kind of pass it. But like, are you like a breakfast guy?
When I have time, I love breakfast food.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So sometimes I'll have breakfast for dinner.
All right. So what would be your top, like, I'm going to have breakfast. This is what I would want.
French toast, cheese grits, eggs. I'm gonna get in trouble. I can do that without meat though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to have like sausage or bacon, but if I had to just say forget it, like no rules. Give me like some good bacon from like Brown Lee's or something like that. I'm giving all these people too many plugs. But no, that's like what I grew up on though. That good hearty breakfast. And French toast is like not everybody's favorite, but it's my favorite.
I like it. I like it. All right. Now I'm going to say this to an entrepreneur, so this is probably going to be like, but if you could be an expert of anything new right now, what would it be?
Oh, AI. For sure.
Huge.
Yeah. If it's I could everywhere. AI is simple.
All right. Let me ask you this. This is a really good question. Try to condense it as much as you can. But
okay.
What are people most likely to misunderstand about you?
Sense of humor. Yeah. Sometimes I say stuff and I'm like, they didn't take that well. So that's sense of humor. Yep.
That's good. All right. Do you have a favorite family tradition or holiday that you like to?
Christmas breakfast at my grandmother's.
Nice.
Like that's like it's a sacred thing, and I'm fighting every day. Like everybody wants to go on trips and stuff for Christmas. Like, no, we're gonna eat breakfast at grandma's. Like, that's it. Like for me, it's Christmas breakfast at grandma's. That's what I'm fighting. And if y'all watching this, we're going to grandmother's house for breakfast.
That's right.
Period. Sorry.
All right. If you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphone, which ones would you keep?
Apple Music, for sure. Oh gosh. Banking app. Gotta
have it.
Gotta have that. Banking app and in the wait, is the call thing, is that an app or is that just like a basic feature?
Well, I'll let you have it as a basic feature.
Okay. Call feature. Then give me any social media. Like I honestly, the thing, I'm more popular on Facebook, but and I don't have hardly any friends on Twitter, but I love Twitter.
Yeah.
Or X, whatever.
X. Yeah.
I love that.
It finally started switching over. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If you could be on a reality TV show, which one would you choose? Or the concept of the reality TV show. Maybe not specific, like the title of this one. But
I hate this question. Because I would have to give like a person credit for something. But okay, I'm gonna say Dame Dash, who was like Jay-Z's like business partner back in the day.
Okay.
They co-founded Rockefeller Records. He had a show back in the day called Ultimate Hustler, like which I would be on that show. It was kind of like when I say this, you're gonna know which I don't want to give, which person I don't want to give credit.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna say it. But it's like a business show. It's like, can you come up with a business idea, and then they give you all these rounds are full of like businesses that you have to start and everything.
Oh, that's
and the person
cool.
who makes like the most money at the end wins. So
that's cool.
So I'll be on that.
That's a great one. Yeah. Well, Marc, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks.
It's really great chance to get to know you a little bit more, to get to know my city that I've moved in over the past year a little bit more, and just get excited about what the future is. And so I'm definitely going to be thinking about those, third graders that you're pouring into. Hopefully, the next 10, 15 years are going to be right here investing in or taking their talent somewhere to continue to invest in other communities. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I enjoy it so much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
Great.
Oh man, thank you, Marc.